Hello and welcome. This is Editorial. I'm your host, Richard Moreno, and my guest, Ambassador Mohammed Zamir, who is also a political analyst. Welcome to the show, sir. The executive and the judiciary, which we may call clearly at loggerheads, which is manifest by statements from both the sides over quite a long period of time. Sir, what do you feel is making this happen?
Well, thank you, Richard, for having me on the program. But we must not forget that if we look at the whole thing holistically, it is not just the executive and the judiciary which makes the state. There is also another pillar, the legislature. And there is also another pillar, the fourth pillar is the media. Now, the interactive engagement between the executive and the judiciary must be understood within that whole paradigm. The legislature discusses and formulates a law, rules and regulations. This is then given to the executive, who have to abide by these legal ramifications, and if they do not do so, a person, a citizen of the state, can approach the judiciary and seek redress, where the judiciary will then see how the executive has executed the decision and whether it is in conformity and consistent with the legal process and the expectations of the people and the constitution. Now, within the constitution, there are two things. One, there are the constitutional articles. But at the same time, there are what is called the fundamental principles, and there is something called the fundamental rights. Now, the fundamental principles, for example, say that the state will ensure that everyone is looked after, etc., etc., etc. But the state cannot be held responsible if, say, X, Y, or Z, unfortunately, for whatever reason, is not receiving the kind of suitable health care, or say, let us say, even to the basics family planning advice, and as a result is in difficulty.
Sir, our Chief Justice and our Law Minister have been very vocal over the past few days regarding, airing their differences regarding their own sections of affairs. How do you feel this is having an influence on the public mind?
No, let me, that's what I was coming to. Now, if for any reason the executive does not address an issue in terms of the legal consistency, it is then the media walks in, and the media then creates the necessary spotlight, so that the person concerned or the institution concerned who have not followed the rules and regulations and who has been held guilty, the matter can be held in terms of judicial reference. Now, within this context, as I was telling you, in our family we have been involved with law since 1882. Now, in this context, we have to understand that the judiciary has to be respected by everyone. Judiciary is really the cornerstone of a country, and the judicial process has to be also supported at every opportunity. They need to be given whatever support they require, but at the same time the judicial process has to follow certain rules and regulations. Because you have seen today, there is a news report that a judge of the Indian High Court has suggested that some of the judges of the Indian Supreme Court should be arrested. You have seen that. Now, I am not going into that. What I am saying is that the judiciary also has to perform according to expectations. The executive, which is headed by the Prime Minister, because the Prime Minister is the head of the government, at the same time she is the head within the Parliament of the ruling party. So, she will be obviously taking interest in the manner in which the law is created, it is then executed.
So, the Prime Minister herself has said that these three state organs, if they do not work in tandem,
Yes.
then it will be difficult even.
But of course, definitely, because if you want to have good governance, then at the same time, what are the basic principles of good governance, Richard? One is that every citizen must have equal rights. There must be security for the citizen. There must be equality of opportunity. And there must be, the fourth thing is equity in the concept of being able to access to justice. Now, that is the duty of the executive and the government to ensure that citizens have that
What
process.
is prompting this sort of difference? What is prompting this sort of difference to turn into differences and keeps on going, to the extent that the law minister has said from now on he is not going to make any open statement, but if he has anything to discuss, he will discuss it with the Chief Justice separately.
This is very important, because we must understand that there is something called confidentiality. I am not saying there is secrecy. Please mark my words. There is confidentiality in terms of discussion, because John Milton said in Areopagitica, discussion is knowledge in the making. That is exactly what the law minister was referring to. Instead of making open statements, both sides should be able to discuss between themselves at an appointed time within an appointed area, where there will be some degree of ethical standards. Because nobody in the judiciary wants the executive to be affected, nobody in the executive wants judiciary to be affected. Because they are both on equal terms and they both need to engage themselves constructively. And that is what the Prime Minister
But
said.
Ambassador, sir, this you have said is absolutely right. Each one should maintain his own situation, his own condition.
Own domain.
But what is prompting them to, enter into what you call it, very innocent arguments? Is it the political system?
No, it's not the political. Let's put it this way. There's something called the bureaucratic mindset. And যেটাকে বলা হয় in Bengali it's আমলাতান্ত্রিক মনোভাবাপন্ন. Now that creates its own matrix and its own connotations and denotations. Now let's take the example of United States. You have seen how the confirmation of the appointment of the Attorney General, the new Attorney General in the United States, and the confirmation of a judge of the Supreme Court, how it was discussed and it became so controversial, not only within the Senate but also in the House of Representatives, in the whole Congress. And the media had a fantastic time discussing it and talking about it till the White House said it was all fake news. Now, what we are doing here is not taking it to that point. Yes, let's say that if a decision is required by the judiciary about their own infrastructure or about their own commitments or about their own powers, and they have referred it to the executive, they should sit down with the executive, whoever the relevant persons are. Let's say in the Supreme Court and the High Court, there is a registrar. And the registrar job is literally to ensure that the administrative aspects of justice are carried out in a proper manner. He is the one who is asked by the Chief Justice that please go and look into this and see what can be done. There is also the Attorney General's office, which is a different thing altogether. This is regarding prosecution or defense. So in this case, in our Ministry of Law, we have now two sections, Ministry of Law and Parliamentary Affairs, because law is from both sides. One is creating the law, the other is executing the law. There is also, this government has created another very good thing, which is we have created the Judicial Affairs Training Institute. We also create, which is now headed by a retired judge of the Supreme Court. And we also have the Law Commission, which is headed by a former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court.
So the chief of our judiciary means our Honorable Chief Justice. He has recently said, if the districts do not have judges, how can we expect law to, to function properly? Because there is a backlog of cases and there are so many other things.
On this thing, I totally agree with him. I totally agree with him, the Honorable Chief Justice. The executive side of the judicial process should try its best to ensure that, because after all there are many people in different districts who are waiting for justice. You can't have a situation where they can't go and appear before a judge because the judge has not been appointed. You might have a situation where you have an additional district judge, but not the district judge. You might not even have an additional district judge. You might say just we have an assistant judge for the moment till we have other people here. But that is not fair. That is not fair to the citizens.
So, what could be the probable reasons for non-appointment of judges?
It's not non-appointment. You see, the thing is that in order for a person to be considered suitable to be a district judge, you need persons who are sufficiently erudite about law, who know how to interpret law in its clear terms. It's not a thing that is like being an executive magistrate. Here a judge making a statement after a judicial hearing has to be seen that this might be appealed on later in the High Court, or there might even be a review in the Supreme Court. So, the whole process needs a person who is erudite in law, who is suitable to be a district judge. Probably our Ministry of Law has not been able to decide on, find out clearly whether a person concerned required is available. But in this case, I will say the Chief Justice is right. The Chief Justice, Honorable Chief Justice, should very correctly, and he has done it, pointed out that there are certain limitations which are emerging, and this must be avoided by the government. So, the government should, if necessary, find out more clearly and soon more people who are sufficiently good enough to be posted as district judges in all the districts.
So, this situation, it has happened over time. See, 46 years on after our independence, the judiciary then and the judiciary now. Do you feel these problems have cropped up over this period of time?
There is a slight difference, because within the executive administration, before you had only 14 districts in the entire country. So, the number of judges were less in terms of requirement. But now you have 64, 65 districts. So, you need 64 district judges, 65 district judges. So, that is one problem, because you have to find so many people of the same quality who can be appointed as district judges. Number one.
Sir, we will come back right to this place, but we need the break now.
Okay.
We will be right here.
Okay.
Viewers, we go for the commercial now. Stay with us. Don't go away. Welcome back, viewers. This is the ATN News Editorial and my guest, Ambassador M. Zamir, political analyst. Welcome back, sir. We were talking about the district judges. Hypothetically speaking, the current situation between the judiciary and the executive, if it does turn from bad to worse, what are going to be the implications?
Well, I am hoping the media will not turn it from bad to worse. Well, the media also has to play a very important and ethical responsibility in this regard. But let us put it this way. One of the reasons why the judicial process is facing difficulty today, and the executive realizes that, is that in the context of dispute and legal redress, the areas of engagement have multiplied in different directions. Before, it used to be criminal procedure code or penal code, or at the most, okay, let us have evidence act, and then after that, if sometimes company law and not always securities law. But nowadays what you have is, because of the multiple dimensions of economic activity, you today have a large diversified area which has to be addressed, and different kinds, and that involves various kinds of legal processes and various kinds of legal redress. Now, in the context of the number of cases which are waiting as disputes which have not been remedied, most of it comes because of land dispute. It still is a major area of dispute within the legal process. Sometimes also what you have is that there is a case, and then one side, one party, mostly the defense, they say, we need witnesses, so we need time. Give us time. And the judge says, okay, you have time, bring back the witness. Or let us say the defense comes and says, sir, we need to get some records to prove our point, give us some more time. So this way time is generated and the delay in the judgment process.
So, sir, hoping that these things come to a clear solution very soon, we have to shift the focus a little.
No, it's not. These are the things which creates the situation. If the number of cases keeps on growing and growing and growing, the backlog grows. Now that creates that dissension that we need more judges. Today you must understand that the population of Bangladesh today, as opposed to 1971, in 71 it was 75 million, today is 160 million, which is little more than 100% rise. Okay? But the number of judges in the High Court have multiplied by almost 3 times. Okay? So the government in its own way is not only trying to address the issue of extra cases, but they are also trying to create the situation where there can be more judges to enable the clearance of these cases. But then also the complexity of these cases have grown, and that creates a problem. The second point is, the government has created the Law Commission, as I said. The government has also created the Judicial Affairs Training Institute, where young judges are regularly brought at the level of assistant judges or in fact additional district judges, and then they are given necessary training and additional information, We now have also in many universities in Dhaka and in Chittagong, LLM classes, Master of Law classes. Now this was in our time, when I did my LLB in 1967, 50 years ago. You had only Dhaka University and you had at that time only LLM in Dhaka University, that too not sufficiently. So people went for LLM, they went to London and then they did their bar.
Sir, we have to move the focus a little.
I am bringing
money flight. Now we have to talk about the money flight.
The flight of money.
The money flight of money, sir, $75 billion over a period of 10 years due to under-invoicing or due to some shady and shoddy deals has gone out of the country over 10 years. So who are the people? We have efficient people managing these things.
No, but to this, thank you for bringing it up. It is something I cannot ever support. This is something which is similar to corruption, and this is not acceptable. But if, as I have always maintained when I was Chief Information Commissioner, someone asked me about this similar thing when it was brought up in the international, it was meeting held in Corruption Council, it was held in Athens, and I was there. I said, look, if this particular group which is monitoring the entire process, it will be more helpful for us, instead of just publishing figures, if they give us how they got the names or the people or the agencies who are involved in this process, share the information with us. Because only when you share the information internationally, both in the case of fighting terrorism and also in the case of illegal money trafficking or human trafficking, none of these are acceptable under international law. So please share the information fully with us, so that the legal authorities can take necessary action in this regard. Now, the easiest thing what happens is that someone is ordering a machine for capital machinery, and it probably costs $100, but he deliberately tells the other side, we are going to import it from you in bulk, so why don't you charge us 300 and then we will take the money from you separately, because that is what happens, that is what is happening, over invoicing and under invoicing. Okay? We have also found out in some of the papers they have reported that sometimes containers come and there is nothing inside the containers except for sand or bits and pieces of iron. Okay? Now, if that company, but this is where the government will have to be more, let us say, convincing in its approach. If someone is found doing these things and they are caught, there should be a speedy tribunal.
Sir, but this has happened over 10 years, $75 billion. And the finance minister was questioned in parliament, how come these things were overlooked? But I don't know if he could give an answer or not,
No,
but he was questioned.
it is not a question of, you can't fault the finance ministry for this. The finance ministry is not in charge of overlooking or looking into these things. It is something which has to be done by us, all of us. Now, if you are over invoicing or under invoicing, don't forget one thing, the two-way trade in Bangladesh per year is now almost 60 billion, or if not more, because if you are exporting about 30 billion and we are importing about 34, 35 billion, or sometimes we are importing just about the same. So, if we are export and import two-way trade is about 60 billion, and the invoicing, over invoicing, under invoicing is about 6 billion, that's 10%, right, average. Now, if this is happening, how in God's name the Ministry of Finance will know about it? This is something where the agents on the ground, they should know what is the price of this machinery or that machinery, what it costs, because what we should do is, anyone bringing in anything which is imported, they should be able to give the price list, and the government should be able to receive the price list and then check and inquire directly.
So, the people involved, especially those involved in monitoring, do you feel that their eyes
That
wide
is,
shut?
that is something which I am saying is possible, because it takes two hands to clap, and those who are involved in this process, if necessary, there should be a clean slate. They should be transferred out of their present responsibility and new people brought in. And only then you will have a situation where you can monitor and find out if corruption is going on in a wholehearted way. Because one thing you must remember, unlike India, unlike Pakistan, the Bangladesh taka, I remember when we were 75, 76 taka to the dollar, India was 48 taka, 48 rupees to the dollar. Now India is about 67, we are still hovering around 79, 80, officially 80, 81.
And we have also seen a jump of the US dollar over the past week by about 4 taka in 1 week,
and
from
then
taka 80 to taka 84 now.
And then it has come down again a bit to 82, 82 and a half. In Pakistan, they have devalued, it's come down to about 112, 114 rupees from about 80. So, we have been able to keep our taka at a good rate vis-a-vis the dollar and the euro and the pound sterling, despite so many difficulties. But yes, the point is, hundi as a concept is being used all over South Asia. Now, this would have stopped, this concept of hundi would have stopped if your taka, this all started, you must remember, this is true also of China, this is true of Korea, this is true of Japan, true of all these places, because true of, let us say, Greek drachmas, this is true of the peso, this is true of the in Bolivia, in Peru, in Colombia and all these places, because where there is drug trafficking. Because this is how money is converted into other fixed currencies like dollar or sterling or something else, if they do not get the chance to convert their local cash quickly. China is one reason China has clamped down in a very strong way over the yuan, and that is why they have stopped this hundi business in China. They have said, okay, the yuan is going to be very strong. So, if you keep your money in yuan, you are not going to lose it, anything. But if there is a chance that your money is going to erode in terms of value, then you want to move it away from that local currency into a currency which will not erode. And that is why these things happen.
So, now you suggest, sir, that non-porous monitoring system.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that you feel is the only way out.
Absolutely.
So, we have to move to another area now. And that is, our Prime Minister has of quite recently been talking about consistently about parents being more alert about their children so that they do not go to militancy. So, this conception, but this thought or this idea of our Prime Minister, from where does it stem? Do you feel she is being given information that children are being swayed toward militancy more as the days go by?
This I must say, because she has been a wonderful parent herself. She has, you must remember one thing, this I am being very neutral about it. Don't forget the kind of difficulties she went through from 1975 to 1981. The difficulties in raising two children, not being able to come home, not being able to educate them properly, and then looking after their welfare, and then she came back and look at the difficulties she went through before they stood on their feet. And both the children have done very well. Now, in our times, what did we see? When there was not television, no social media, we came home and we had discussions with our parents. We asked them questions, they gave us answers. But now, because of various reasons, availability of electronic media, social media and other things, the children are drifting away from their parents, and they sometimes feel the parents have no business asking them what they are doing, when they are going to do something expected of them, or where they are going. They feel that this is intrusion into their privacy. Now, the Prime Minister is very correct. Unless the parents interact with their children, find out what their problems are, find out if they are facing any complexity. In Bengali, we have the term Obhiman. There is no translation for that, Obhiman. Now, in a situation like that, the parents need to come forward and try to engage with their children, so that they will know if they are suffering from any inferiority complex or any difficulty, so that they can address that.
Sir, we've had a very good discussion.
And persuade them to go for sport activities.
Sir, on this note, we have to come to the end of this discussion.
Thank you.
Viewers, we have come to the end of this edition of Editorial. Stay tuned to ATN News. From me, Richard Moreno, it's goodbye.